History has given us a lot of great rulers. Often the humble queens are overlooked for their kings. But let's be real. Women change history all the time, from Libra Anne of Cleves, who managed to use kindness and logic to get out of her marriage alive, to Gemini Queen Victoria, who fell into a deep depression without her all-important relationship with Prince Albert. Some of these queens ruled with progressive ideas and truly changed their countries for the better. Other times, they let their emotions get the best of them and slaughtered hundreds of people. Here's looking at you, Queen Mary. Your zodiac sign is a window into your soul, and these tough-as-heck royals and their zodiac signs will show you your perfect match. Let's just hope you use your ruling powers for good, rather than a streak of mass murder and a few loveless divorces.
Those born under the sign of Aries are never likely to run away from battle. This was certainly the case for Margaret of Anjou, the courageous queen who was married to the very mentally unbalanced Henry VI of England. Margaret of Anjou quickly became one of her husband's biggest advisors as soon as they wed, and the fact that she was a woman made it sting all the more for Richard, Duke of York. As an Aries, you definitely know how to take charge and enthusiastically voice your opinions in the face of adversity and pesky naysayers. Margaret eventually helped oust Richard from power, a bold move that is just another day in the office for a courageous Aries. No one is going to hold you back. The Taurus motto is slow and steady wins the race. Their perseverance gets the job done. Sometimes the job happens to be a 7-year war, and that is why you probably relate to Empress Maria Theresa. Maria Theresa reformed the government after a major loss and embarked on the 7-year war against Frederick II. Yes, 7 entire years. Taurus also has a taste for luxury, and Maria Theresa grew up like a typical privileged princess. She learned frivolous skills at school rather than the tough topics traditionally handed to boys, so when she was given the throne, she had to teach herself. Luckily, she had the perseverance and determination of a Taurus to get her through. Geminis are artistic and smart, but they really thrive in pairs. As a dynamic one, some always looking for their counterpart, you relate to Queen Victoria. Through the devoted partnership of her husband, Prince Albert, she helped expand Britain's industrial and economic progress. She also created the Great Exhibition, which helped finance the South Kensington Museum's complex in London. Unfortunately, the Queen fell into a deep depression when her husband died and wore black for the remainder of her reign. Geminis always need their other half. Queen Victoria had two sides, as any Gemini would. She was a lively artist with unabashed opinions she fearlessly voiced to Parliament, but she also shied away from the public eye and was widely criticized for living a secluded life. Cancers sometimes let their emotions get the best of them. This was the case for Empress Josephine. Though Josephine was married a number of times, her marriage to Napoleon Bonaparte was perhaps the most tumultuous. After they became engaged, Bonaparte sent her numerous love letters, which she didn't answer. Ultimately, she ended up flirting with another army officer and causing a whole lot of drama that almost ruined her marriage. She had to beg Bonaparte to take her back. The heart wants what it wants, and a Cancer's heart always beats the loudest. Unfortunately, regardless of their reconciliations, the couple were forced to divorce for reasons of state, namely, that they couldn't conceive an imperial heir. Leos are generally considered to be the iron-willed go-getters of the zodiac. They're courageous, heroic, good-hearted, and loyal, just like Queen Elizabeth Lyons. Queen Elizabeth, generally known as the Queen Mother in order to not be confused with her daughter, Queen Elizabeth II, was so charismatic that some people referred to her as the Smiling Duchess. She used her charismatic nature to morally support the exhausted British public during Wowie, exactly the type of job suited for a Leo. As a Leo, you can rally the troops and boost morale with your go-getting attitude like no one else. You make people feel like there's nothing they can't achieve with you by their side, and that very well may be the truth. Virgos are generally regarded as the brains of the zodiac. They are shrewd, analytical, and use their smarts to tackle any problem. As a Virgo, you relate to Queen Elizabeth I, who created and orchestrated a brilliant campaign to frame herself as the shining leader of England. when she had previously been regarded as an illegitimate heir, the throne. This made way to the Elizabethan age and helped thrust England forward in terms of power, commerce, the arts, and politics. Yes, Queen Elizabeth. I managed to accomplish all that, and being a wizened Virgo probably didn't hurt one bit. Libras are the fairest and most just of the zodiac signs. They lead with logic and strive to achieve harmony in all aspects of life. As a Libra, you relate to Anne of Cleves. Anne is often regarded as Henry VIII's most successful queen simply because her pragmatism kept her from a tragic fate, like most of Henry VIII's other wives. Anne repulsed her husband, and the pair never consummated their marriage, and they eventually agreed to an annulment because it was the sensible thing to do. Instead of getting her head chopped off, Henry VIII let her live in the lap of luxury for the rest of her life and call herself the sister of the king. Not a bad outcome considering Henry VIII was no looker to begin with and often hounded people to their deaths. Scorpio is a mysterious sign, and those born under its enigmatic energy can often be difficult to figure out. Marie Antoinette is one queen whom history is constantly trying to warp into something new and understood, mainly because she kept herself so hidden away during her lifetime that it is nearly impossible to tell just exactly who this woman really was. She turned her back on the rigid court etiquette of Versailles and built herself a garden retreat that would keep prying eyes off of her. A truly Scorpio move, as Scorpios never want people to be able to divine the reasons behind their actions. They play their cards close to their chests, but opening up a bit wouldn't hurt, especially if it helps you avoid getting your head chopped off. Sagittarius is bold and vivacious. They lust for freedom and knowledge and don't like being held down by the shackles of convention. This is why Sagittarius relates to Christina, Queen of Sweden. Christina was known as a whip-smart, lively princess. She became queen at the tender age of 6 and proceeded to surround herself with musicians, philosophers, and writers for the rest of her life. As a Sagittarius whose search for knowledge is never complete, you probably have a similar group of friends. What is especially interesting about Christina is that she abdicated at the age of 28 so she could move to Rome, become a patron of the arts, and found the Accademia dell'Arcadia for literature and philosophy. As a Sagittarius, you can't be held down. A life without travel and knowledge isn't worth even the greatest achievements. Nothing can compete with a Capricorn's discipline. This zodiac sign is notoriously serious, introverted, and withdrawn. If there is any royal woman who possessed this level of seriousness and introversion, it was Empress Elizabeth of Austria. Elizabeth was known for isolating herself inside of her palace after a life marred with tragedy. She struggled with mental illness after her son's suicide, and was generally kind of melancholic and shy from the moment she married Emperor Franz Joseph to the moment she was killed by an Italian anarchist. Unfortunately for Elizabeth, her intense level of discipline developed into a severe eating disorder, and her life ended when she was assassinated by an Italian anarchist. Aquarius energy is altruistic and independent. They're innovative thinkers whose idealism can either get the best of them or help them accomplish great things. Aquarius most relates to Queen Anne, whose reign saw incredible advancement for Great Britain, the kind of progress most Aquarians dream of. It was during her rule that the crowns of England and Scotland were unified to form Great Britain. Anne never played by the rules and processed ideals that were far ahead of her time. She even allegedly found a romantic interest in her childhood friend Sarah Jennings Churchill, the wildly powerful Duchess of Marlborough, which was a political nightmare in the late 1600s. Anne was idealistic in the way she hoped to live in a world of political freedom and ruled by her personal beliefs. This encompassed ideals from multiple political parties rather than those traditionally held by the ruling party. As an Aquarius, you too rule by your personal ideals rather than sticking to the status quo. Pisces' best or worst trait is their wild nature. This zodiac sign is emotional, charming, and spiritual, but can also sometimes be erratic and a martyr. For this reason, you relate to Queen Mary II. This Queen of England is popularly remembered as Bloody Mary because she burned hundreds of people at the stake in a quest to restore Catholic rule. A little wild and unpredictable, just a bit. Not everything about Mary oozed the negative traits of a Pisces. She lived a life of romance and was engaged at the shocking age of 2, though that deal was later called off. It still wouldn't be unlike a Pisces to change their mind.